Hello and welcome to my training video for the AAT Advanced Diploma Synoptic Assessment Practice Assessment 1. We're going to be focusing on the spreadsheet software element of Practice Assessment 1 today, which has been an area that students have found quite difficult. In this video we're going to cover all aspects of Practice Assessment 1 in lots of detail. I hope you found this video useful. In task 2.1, we're told with a situation that BLM & Co had originally budgeted to make and sell 5,000 sinks in the quarter to 31st of March 20x8. Due to a marketing campaign, however, it actually made and sold 6,000 sinks in this quarter. The original budget for the quarter to 31st of March 20x8 is in the original budget worksheet of this spreadsheet, and today's date is the 20th of April 20x8. The first thing which you need to do in your Synoptic assessment is that you need to save the spreadsheet file that you've just downloaded from the assessment environment, so from a Secure Assess. So it says here to save the spreadsheet in the appropriate location. Now I would say that in your assessment that would normally either be your desktop or alternatively your My Document section, and rename it using the following format: your initial surname AAT number date in the format day month year task 2-1. I've already done this, and you can see at the top of the screen that I've already saved it and put my personal details in there. It says the high degree of accuracy is required, and you must save your work as an XLS or XLSX file, which we should normally do, and save it at regular intervals to avoid losing your work. So whenever you've done a bit of work, I would always just click on save to make sure you're saving it regularly, just in case anything happens, it crashes. Hopefully won't, but if anything happens then you won't be losing very much work. In the actual exam, if your computer does crash, obviously you need to inform the invigilator as soon as that happens. So let's have a look at the tasks then. So let's start with task A. Open the worksheet called Original Budget. Now we've got this worksheet there. Let's just click in it a second. There we go. That's our worksheet Original Budget, and we've got a list of things to do here. So we're going to work through each of these things to do, and we're going to answer the question. The first bullet point here says in cell D1 use a formula to calculate the percentage by which to flex the original budget in light of actual activity in the quarter ended 31st of March 20x8. Now just to say here that with the Synoptic assessment, then it does cover all of the other units with the exception of indirect tax, but what they're looking at here is flex budgeting, which you would previously have covered in the management accounting costing unit. So I would say that if you're not sure about flex budgeting, then I would stop at this point, go over your flex budgeting materials from management accounting costing, and then have a look at this again later. So we're going to look at this now. We're going to look at flexing the original budget in light of the actual activity. So let's go over to the original budget spreadsheet. Now we're told in the question that BLM & Co had originally budgeted to make and sell 5,000 sinks in the quarter to 31st of March 20x8. But due to this marketing campaign, they actually made and sold 6,000 sinks. Now, if you remember with flex budgeting, then what we've got to do is we've got to take the original budget and we've got to flex that to the levels of the actual results. Because the actual results are what's actually happened, that's the bit that's set in stone, if you like. So then we've got to take our original budget based on 5,000 units made and sold, and we've got to flex that up to 6,000 units so that we've got a situation where we can compare a budget of 6,000 units with actual results of 6,000 units. Now let's have a look at how we do this. So in cell D1 it says use a formula. That's key. So you have to use a formula here in cell D1. Let's just click on cell D1 to calculate the percentage by which to flex the original budget in light of actual activity for the quarter ending 31st of March 20x8. Now for this one here, whilst there are various ways you can set the formula out, this is how we're going to do it here. So I'm going to start by putting an equals sign in. So when we do a formula, we always have to start with the equals sign. And then I'm going to do a sum, so I need to open some brackets to do a sum. So we're going to do the bit in the brackets first, get Excel to work that bit out first. Now what we're saying is we're doing 6,000, that's 6,000 units what we're going to flex it to, minus 5,000 units, what it previously was for our budget. So close the brackets there. And we're dividing it by the 5,000 units from our original budget. So what we're saying basically is that our budget's being flexed up by 1,000 units, and we divide that by the 5,000 original units, and therefore we'll just press enter. We can see that comes out at 0.2, effectively 20%. Let's just save our file a second having done that. So the next bullet point says format cell D1 as a percentage to 2 decimal places. So we click back in D1, and in this number section we can change the formatting to a percentage. At the moment it's showing a decimal. Now you can either click on this number box here and it brings up the format cells box for number, and we can do it in there. But alternatively, everything you need is in here. So let's click on the down arrow, and you can see it brings up a whole range of different options, and the one we want to go for, let's just go there, it says percentage 20%. So I'll click on there. Okay, now it says here 20.00%, and that's what we want, because it says here we want to format it to 2 decimal places. But if we wanted to increase it or decrease it, then we can use these buttons. So this one here, increase decimal, that's if we wanted 3 or maybe 4 decimal places, and the other one, decrease decimal, shows if it's fewer, so 1 or 0 decimal places. But it's fine as it is. Let's just save that one again. Let's have a look at the next bullet point. It says in column D, to create a flex budget, insert formulas. So we're looking at formulas again. Insert formulas to flex the revenue and costs where necessary. I want to pick up on that term where necessary, because when we're looking at the various items, what we've got to remember is the fixed overheads, being a fixed cost, won't need to be flexed. Can we see here that even though we're looking at a spreadsheet question in this synoptic assessment, then we still need to have a very good knowledge of the other units, in this case the costing unit. So let's have a look at this one again. So in column D, to create a flex budget, insert formulas to flex the revenue and cost where necessary, using absolute referencing to the percentage in cell D1. So here we're needing to do a formula, but we've got to use the absolute cell referencing. So this is the one where we have the dollar signs, which we'll see in just a second. So what we're going to do here then is we're going to put some formulas in here. So there's my column D. Let's just do it for the first one, for revenue. Now remember that revenue behaves in the same way as a variable cost. So what I'm going to do here is start with equals sign and do equals C5, that's my original budget, so it'd be that figure, plus, and this is where we're going to flex it, open bracket, C5, the original budget, times, put the star in for times, and then I'm just going to click on cell D1 because that's what we're going to be flexing it by. And then close the bracket. Now we're not quite done there yet, because what we've got to do is I'm just going to select cell D1, and what I need to do is to make that into an absolute cell reference. Now you can just type the brackets in around it, so it would be $D, $1, and the absolute cell reference effectively anchors it in place. But we'll do it a bit quicker. Highlight that, and then hold the function key if you're on a laptop, or if not, you can just press the F4 key. So it's either function F4 or just F4, depending on what your computer does. And can we see there that that's put the dollar signs around it? Now that gives you the answer there, but what we need to remember is that by putting the dollar sign around it, as I copy that down, as I'm copying the cell down, then it always highlights or locks in place that cell D1. That isn't going to move as the other cells move. So what I can do is to copy it down into the other cells. So I'm just going to click in that bottom right hand corner, and I'm going to drag it down to here. Now remember, the fixed overheads aren't going to be changing, so we don't need to take it down that far. So we're just going to do that. There we go, and that's what we've got here. Just to make sure, let's just click in this one in the bottom, make sure that's correct there. So the variable overheads, so it's 55,000 plus 20% of 55,000, so in total that's 66,000. So that's all fine. Now in terms of the fixed overheads, then the fixed overheads are going to be the same as before. So to put those ones in, I can just do equals, and then just click on the cell there, equals that cell, and then I can do the same in there as well. And let's just save that file. So there we go, we've done the third bullet point there. So we've created the flex budget by using formulas and absolute referencing. The next thing we need to do, it says in column E, to update the actual results for the quarter, use copy and paste values, do not paste the link, to copy the revenue and costs from the actual results worksheet into the correct positions. So we're going to go to the actual results worksheet here, and we can see that if I just highlight them, there are actual figures. So we just want to copy those ones, so we can go here, copy at the top, copy those ones, then go back to our original budget worksheet, and then we're just going to paste them in. Now when we paste them in, what we need to do is we're going to go here, we're going to click on the paste, but just click on the down arrow, and then in paste special you want to go and select values. So we're going to says paste the values and say OK. So those are in there. And I'm just going to save the workbook again. Moving on to task B now, we're told that in the original budget worksheet, calculate the operating profit figures for the original budget, flex budget, and actual results. So we're going to do that one now. So let's start with the original budget. So the operating profit goes in here, and what we've got to remember is to calculate the operating profit, it's going to be the sales revenue minus all of our costs. So we're going to need to do a formula for that one. So in here I'm going to say equals, and then I'm going to click on sales revenue, that's in C5, minus, then I'm going to put in here minus the sum and then open the brackets, the sum of these cells here. So I'm going to select that range of cells and close the bracket. So we're saying here that it's going to be the operating profit is going to be the sales revenue figure in C5 minus the total or sum of all of our costs. And then just say enter, and that gives us an operating profit of £33,000. And then we can do the same for the other two. Now what we can do is we can just drag the formula across, and then we'll just check to make sure it's correct for each one. So in here, let's just click on the cell to make sure that's correct. There we go, there's my sales revenue minus all my costs, that's fine. And then in here, there's my sales revenue minus all my costs, and that's fine as well. So we now need to calculate the variances. And if we look at the second bullet point on task B, we're told that in column F, we need to calculate the variances between the flex budget and the actual results, showing adverse variances as negative figures and favourable variances as positive figures. So again, this uses our understanding of flex budgeting from the management accounting costing unit, because we're going to need to use our knowledge here to put the formula in to calculate the variances. Let's do the variance for the revenue first. It's important to remember that the variance for the revenue, which is income, is going to be different from the variances for the materials, labour and the different overheads, which are expenditure variances. So if we look at this variance for revenue, we're going to start by putting equals, and let's have a look at what's happening. So our flex budget was £960,000, so that's what we should have earned. But if we look here, our actual results was £975,000, so we actually did better than we expected. So therefore our variance is going to be the difference, which is £15,000, and because we did better than we expected, that's going to be favourable. So let's put the formula in to record that. So we're going to do equals E5, our actual results, minus D5, our flex budgeted figure for revenue. If we press enter, we can see that gives us a variance of £15,000 positive, so that's a favourable variance. Let's put in our variances for our expenditure items now, expenditure lines. So I'm going to do equals the flex budget figure, £108,000. So that's how much money we've got to spend on direct material 1. And if we minus from that, say D6 minus E6, that's what we actually spent on direct materials, then what we're hoping for here is a 3,000 positive or favourable variance, because we're saying here we had £108,000 to spend, we've only spent £105,000, so therefore we should have £3,000 effectively favourable because it's underspent. Now for this one we can copy our formulas down here. There we go. I just want to just check one or two, because we've got it was worth just checking here. Let's just pick another one here, this one, which is a favourable variance. So for quality control, we're saying that our flex budget was £72,000, so that's what we had available to spend on quality control. Our actual was 70, that's what we actually spent on quality control, so we got £2,000 effectively left over, so that's a £2,000 favourable variance. Okay, that's a positive figure. Now if you move on to this one here, this one at the bottom, which is a negative figure, which is an adverse variance. If we look at selling and distribution overheads, our budget was £90,000, that's what we had available to spend on selling and distribution costs. And can we see their actual results is £110,000. So we're saying we've actually spent £20,000 more than we had to spend, which is bad. We spent money we didn't really have, so that's an adverse variance. So we're happy that those are all correct. Let's just save that a second before we move on to the third bullet point. And the third bullet point for B is to insert a formula in cell F16, the operating profit variance, to total cells F5 to F15. So it's basically saying we need to total those cells F5 to F16. And there's various ways of doing it. You could potentially do a formula to add them all, kind of work them out individually. But the easiest thing to do is to click on this auto sum button, and then it's going to just press enter. It's going to calculate it for us, and that's saying there that our operating profit variance is £16,200 positive. So it's effectively a favourable variance. We're saying here that we made £16,200 more profit than we originally anticipated from our flex budget. So moving on to task C, in the original budget worksheet, we're told to insert an if statement in cell F18 that will show the word agreed if the figure for the operating profit variance is the same as the difference between the column totals for the flex budget and the actual results, and the word check if they do not. So we need to be accurate with this question, and we've got to make sure that we enter our if statement into cell F18, because if we enter it somewhere else in the exam we will lose marks. So I'm in cell F18. I'm going to start by putting my if statement in, and I'm going to do equals if and open the bracket. And then what comes up is three things. So it says if, and then it says logical test. Now the logical test is the test that we're going to be putting in. We're kind of trying to work out what we want it to do. And then it's got value if true. And what that's saying is that if the logical test is true or correct, that's what's going to be displayed. And the value if false, we're saying if the logical test isn't true, isn't correct, then it's going to display something else. So let's have a look at this one. So the first thing we want to do is a working, and we're going to take the difference between the column totals, the flex budget, and actual results, so the operating profit figures. So I'm going to take the column total for actual results, E16, minus the column total for flex budget, D16. I just close the brackets for that working. And I'm going to say if E16 minus D16 equals my operating profit variance in F16. So that's my logical test there. Okay, so my logical test is basically saying that the difference between my actual operating profit and my flex budget operating profit is the same as my operating profit variance in cell F16. Now, if that's true, we want to put the value if true. So I'm going to press the comma to move on to that. Now, can we see here that it's changed? Now it's still highlighting value if true. Now, if that's true, we want to put the word agreed in. So we're going to type that one in, but to show it's text, I want to do that with the quote marks in there. So I'm going to put the word here, agreed, and close the quote marks, and then comma. Now we can see it's moved now on to value if false, and then I'm going to put in here inverted commas in quote marks, word check, and then close the bracket. So having done our if statement, what that's basically saying then is we're going to take the difference between the column totals for actual results and flex budget, and if that difference agrees with my operating profit variance in cell F16, if that's true, it comes up with the word agreed, and if that isn't true, it comes up with the word check. So if we press enter, let's see what happens. There we go, it comes up with the word agreed. The second bullet point in task C is we're told to freeze the worksheet so that the range A1 to B16 always remains visible during scrolling. So for this one, we're going to use the function called freeze panes, and the freeze panes function is under the view tab. So let's just click on that one. There's our view tab, and then we can see here that there's our button there for freeze panes that we're going to be using in a minute. Now when we're using the freeze panes, we've got to be careful which cell or cells we're selecting, because we want to freeze the right part of it. So for this one, we're told that cells A1 to B16 always remain visible during scrolling. So in that case, what I want to do is I want to click in cell C17 before I do the freeze panes. So what I need to do is to select the cell below the rows and to the right of the columns you want to keep visible when you scroll. So now, having clicked on the right cell, I'm going to go to freeze panes and then click on the top button, freeze panes, and that should do it. So now when I scroll, I can scroll down and we can see there that everything up to B16, see row 16, that's all the same, that hasn't changed. And then if I go the other way, if I go out to the right, we can see that column A and B are always there, and that we can move anything else. So that completes task C. So moving on to task D, the owners of the business have been told by the bank that their target profit for the next quarter must be £95,000. Brian wants to know by how much the cost of direct material 3 needs to be reduced in order to meet this target profit. So in question D, in task D, it says to be able to answer Brian's question, you will need to use the goal seek function, but you must capture the evidence of this in the worksheet called screen print before accepting the goal seek answer. So the first bullet point says to copy all of the data in the original budget worksheet and paste it, so not using the paste link, into the goal seek worksheet starting in cell A1. So what we need to do then is we need to copy all of this data here in the original budget worksheet. Let's copy that. So I'm going to go to Home tab, click on copy, and then we go to the goal seek worksheet in cell A1. I'm going to paste that in there. I'm just going to save the file as well. So let's have a look at the second bullet point, and we're told that in the goal seek worksheet we need to use the goal seek function to investigate what change in the actual direct material 3 cost figure, which is in cell E8, which I've just clicked on there, would be required to generate an actual operating profit of £95,000 in cell E16. So I'm going to click on cell E16 and I'm going to do the goal seek now. So what we need to do is we need to be on the data tab, which I'm on there, and if you go to the what if analysis and click in there, then you'll see that the second item down is goal seek, so we can click on that one, and then we've got to fill it in. So we're saying we want to set cell E16, that's our answer cell, where it says to value, that's what we want it to be, which is going to be £95,000, by changing cell E8. So that's what we're going to do there. So basically what that's telling us is that we want to set cell E16 to £95,000. In other words, we want cell E16 to become £95,000, and the way we're going to do that is by getting the value in cell E8 to change so that cell E16 will become £95,000. Now, we've got to quickly look at the third bullet point before we click on OK, because it says here, when the completed goal seek dialog box is showing, but before you click on the OK button, use the print screen function to capture evidence of your work and then accept the goal seek. So I'm just going to do the print screen first. So I'm just going to click on the print screen button there, and that's going to take a screenshot of what I've done there. And then having done that, that's fine, we'll come back to that later. I'm just going to click on OK, and then we can see here that that's changed the figures there, and we can say OK. So in other words, we've got an operating profit of £95,000 now, and the figure for direct materials 3 has changed accordingly. So now let's do bullet point 4, which says in the screen print worksheet, paste the screenshot. So I'm going to go to the screen print worksheet, and I'm just going to click in there. On the home tab, I'm just going to click on paste. So it's effectively just taking a photograph of what we did on the goal seek tab, and we can paste it in here as evidence of what we've done. So the final thing I want to do is just to save my work a final time by clicking on save, and that completes task 2.1. Thank you for watching today. I hope you found it useful and hope it helps you prepare effectively for your Synoptic assessment.